Yeah, so I'd like to introduce to you Ellie Toimbo. Ellie is the program manager for Goroka Case Management Centre and Goroka Operations for Family PNG in PNG, and obviously she's in Goroka, based in Goroka in the Eastern Highlands. And she'll tell you more about Family PNG. But I'll just tell you, it is the Family PNG 10th anniversary this year. And so in recognition of that, we had celebrations in the various cities and towns we have offices in Lae, Goroka and Port Moresby earlier in the year. And then also we invited Ellie to come to our annual conference here at the Development Policy Centre, which we just held, and she gave a really fantastic speech last night at the dinner. But there wasn't any time for Q&A, so we thought we'd have a separate sort of Q&A session here on Zoom. So that's what we're going to do tonight. It's pretty informal. There aren't a lot of us. Hi, Elizabeth. And I'm going to start out with a few questions for Ellie, and then others please feel free to add your own questions and contribute to the conversation. All right, so let's make a start. Welcome, Ellie.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Why don't you start by just telling us a bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you did before joining Family PNG.
Yes.
And and if you can just let us know if you have any difficulty hearing. Obviously, we can adjust the audio.
Yeah. So thank you, Stephen, and thank you for those who are joining us this evening. My name is Ellie Toimbo, and I'm from Papua New Guinea, but specifically in the Highlands region of the country. My dad is from Simbu province, and my mom is from Enga province. So I grew up, most of my life, I grew up in my dad's province, which is Simbu. But I also had a chance to spend some time with my mother as well and her family. So I was working formally with an international NGO, which is Medicine Sans Frontiers. MSF was assisting and helping several hospitals in the country. It was helping family support centers in basic providing training, and also helping survivors of family and sexual violence. So I was doing outreach and awareness, providing information to individuals and communities and institutions before I actually joined Family PNG.
Great. I understand you joined Family PNG, was it in 2015?
Yes, that was in 2015.
So and what made you join Family PNG?
So basically, I was doing awareness to family and sexual violence survivors. So when I saw one position that was put out by Family PNG, I thought it would be a good idea to try and apply, because I felt that my experience of providing awareness to survivors of family and sexual violence would be an added value to contribute effectively if I have to be working with Family PNG.
Okay, and now you've been with Family PNG almost 10 years. How would you describe the work of Family PNG?
So Family PNG provides case management to survivors of family and sexual violence. So we have 4 target group of people that we assist. The first one is intimate partner violence. So and then the second one is child abuse. Third one, more specifically, sexual violence survivors. And the fourth one is survivors of social reaccusation related violence. So we do provide case management services to these survivors. So if I say case management, it's a broader term, and maybe some people wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. But if we are to break that down, we do receive survivors, and then we sit with them, we hear out their stories, and then we help them to come up with what they want, what their objectives are. And once we identify them, we refer them to other service providers when necessary. So after we refer, we don't just refer and we let go. We also do follow up from time to time, just to ensure that the survivor gets to the service provider and gets the services that he or she needs. And then we also follow up to see what the outcome of the case is, or where the status of the case is. Mm-hmm. So basically, we do several follow-ups on just one particular case. So follow-ups can take longer or shorter, depending on the case, nature of the case, and depending on how fast service provider progresses the case. So we would have some cases that takes as long as 2 or 3 years. These are basically cases that goes up to the national court. And so this is part of what I meant to say case management. Mm-hmm. But to really make also say something about how family PNG's work has come this far. To be honest, it is very challenging working with family PNG, but also very rewarding too. Mm-hmm. The contribution that each one staff has made, and the commitment demonstrated, and the challenges that are navigated to achieve the overall goal of the organization, and also to see survivors having a smile on their face at the end of that case is something that's satisfying. Mm-hmm.
Sure. So, of course, I think for a long time you were a caseworker doing that sort of work you're describing. Maybe for 8 years in Lae, you had that role.
Yes.
So obviously,
yes.
You know that very well. And then this year you moved to Goroka to manage the Goroka office. So perhaps tell us a bit about the Goroka office and what's unique about it, how that operates.
Okay, so basically, Goroka office is the smallest office of the 3 offices that we have. Mm-hmm. And so what is different from the other 2 offices is this. Goroka office is stationed within the complex of the provincial government of the Eastern Highlands province. That's basically something that Family PNG has always aimed to work closely together with the government. And this is one positive thing that we've seen. So we're currently working in that space together with the support of the provincial administration under the community development. Another different something that we see is we are attending to a lot more social accusation related violence in Goroka than the other two offices. And then we also have outreach program, which is also quite different from the one that we have in Lae project. Our outreach program has identified people in the community are basically seen as community leaders, someone that people or the community can run to when they are faced with challenging situations. We have identified these people in the community, and then we provided training to them, information. We give them information as to how they can work with the community, identify the survivors, and help them to also have access to the services that are provided. So this is also something that's different from the other office.
Yeah. So those sorcery accusation-related violence cases you mentioned, they must be very difficult cases to manage. Can you tell us a bit more about that in your experience?
Yes. So when it comes to sorcery accusation related violence, it's quite complex. It's quite complex because one survivor would come and report that there are lots of perpetrators. So a woman or a man would come and say, I was assaulted by this family or by this community. It can sometimes be the whole community as well. So survivors having more perpetrators has also expanded or increased the risk, not just to the survivors, but to also service providers as well. And so having access to other service providers, sometimes it's overwhelming. The service provider is unable to help and support the survivors. So basically, for service providers who deal with the perpetrators, sometimes they see that there's quite a number of perpetrators to deal with. So it sort of became like hindrance for them to execute their responsibilities, and so survivors are left still with risk and not assisted properly.
You were telling me earlier about the police becoming more proactive on this issue, and that's had some positive knock-on effects. That was very interesting. You want to talk about that?
So in the recent months, we tried to work together with the police, and so different departments of the police came into seeing that sorcery accusation-related violence was growing in the province. So they are a bit more proactive these days, and so I think several arrests has been done, and so the arrest that was done then sent messages to the community, and so now people are more careful in accusing someone or assaulting someone, and then sending or forcing them out of their families and communities.
Yeah, that's really positive. I know also from my experience in Goroka, you've got a very strong outreach program in Goroka. So perhaps talk a bit more in the Eastern Highlands more broadly, right? Perhaps talk about that for a bit.
Yes, so we have a very strong outreach program. I think I mentioned that a little bit of that earlier. So our outreach program is comprised of our outreach officer plus the volunteers that were identified in the community. So these volunteers are trained and they are sensitized and they are supported in different communities that they represent. So we have almost 3 districts that we work together with, and these volunteers, they come up with their own annual plan of activities, and the office supports them in terms of basic logistic, if they would need refreshment, in whatever way to support them to carry out awareness, and then also identifying survivors. If they're identifying survivors and bringing them to the service providers, and they would need maybe bus fare, anything to make their movement easier, we support in that. Yeah.
So I understand a couple have started up a safe house as a result of this kind of volunteer involvement.
Yes, there was a couple that they put their building into a safe house where they accommodated survivors and people who were running for safety. So this couple have attended one of our information sensitization training, and after they attended, they were convinced that they should do something, at least for their community and for their people. So they have volunteered to put out one of their houses to accommodate for survivors. And not just that, they have also, I think they owned a very big piece of land. And so they have given, I think, almost 4 survivors so far. They have given them pieces of land so they can put up a building and temporarily live there. So Family PNG came in and supported with building materials, basic items for the houses that they have built, and the survivors are now living on the land that was given by this couple.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I hope that's that was some of the initial questions that I thought I'd give to Ellie to give you an idea of the work that she does and the work that Family PNG does, especially out of Goroka. Of course, we also have offices, in fact, bigger offices in Lae and Port Moresby. And as I mentioned, Ellie actually spent 8 years in Lae, so she's well positioned to answer questions about Family PNG's work more broadly. But this is meant to be an interactive session, so I might just see if others would like to chip in with any questions or comments of your own. Please feel free. It's a great opportunity to ask Ellie any questions that you have. So would anyone like to start us off?
Hi, Ellie. Lovely to see you. Lauren here from Family PNG Australia. How has the conference been this week? Have you found some of the conversations helpful for your work? Is there anything that you are interested in looking at further as a result of being at the conference?
Yes, I think I have attended several of the sessions so far. It's quite interesting to hear the different presentation and the sessions. And what I was really interested in one of those sessions where they shared about cyber that's involved in gender-based violence. That was really something new that I learned. And I think we also have survivors that do report about this violence using digital platforms. But most times I see that they have not been listened properly and assisted properly. And so this is one thing that really interested me.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of things that both Australia and Papua New Guinea can learn from each other in their approach to family and gender-based violence. So I'm really glad that you've been both able to share some of your lessons with the conference. I hear this your after-dinner speech went really well. Congratulations on that. But also to have that information sharing and swapping, which is a big focus of the conference. So it's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lauren. And yeah, for those who don't know Lauren, she's actually the CEO of Family PNG Australia. Family PNG Australia is a support organisation, obviously based here in Australia, that provides technical support and also helps raise funds for the very important work that Family PNG undertakes. And we've also got Jada, who's the communications officer for Family PNG Australia, also online. Actually, my wife Claire is also online, and Claire was with me in Goroka. We both went up actually for the hi Jada. We both went up for the 10th year anniversary celebrations in Goroka, as well as in Lae and in Port Moresby. And yeah, Claire, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you're there, is there anything you want to share from that experience?
Ellie, one of the things that really impressed me when I was up in Goroka was how over the few years that the Goroka office had been working, you really changed the attitudes of the stakeholders and partners that you worked with, and how the people that were celebrating with you that day really spoke very highly of the relationship you had developed. And I just wondered if you could comment a little bit on how you did that, and what were the key relationships that you developed with other people, other service providers and the church groups and the volunteers, that, because it seems to me those relationships were really, really key.
Yeah, thank you, Claire, for that. I think, when we do case management, we need all the different actors on the ground to work together with. So we cannot assist survivors on our own. So one of the key areas is to build relationship with service providers, especially the government service providers, including other NGOs, FBOs, churches, those who have at least some programs of gender-based violence and SAV. So one thing that we try to also maintain and improve is building relationship, connecting with people, reaching out to the different service providers. And so I think we have worked a lot in the last few months to get that working. So yeah, we're continuing to, reach out and build more partnership.
Yeah. And one aspect of that, one thing that happened actually after the 10th anniversary is that you signed an MOU, or Family PNG signed an MOU with the Eastern Highlands Provincial Administration. That's one characteristic of this office, that it's, as Ellie said, it's actually based in the Eastern Highlands Provincial Administration. It's got a very close relationship with the government, which, even though we've been in lay since the start, we still don't have that MOU with the Morro Bay government. So maybe you just talk a bit more about that partnership in particular, and like how we've been able to get this good relationship with the government, and what difference that makes.
Yeah, I think we do have a very strong relationship with the provincial government, especially in the Eastern Highlands province. And because I think in several of some cases that we've worked together with the community development has seen the interventions done and the kind of support that we've given them. So at the very beginning, they have invited us and they've given us a space where we can operate and also see clients in there. So community development has been very supporting and was at the back of us, assisted us into introducing us to other service providers already on the ground, and gave us that space where we can connect with others and serve survivors. So we really have a very good relationship with them. And in our last MOU signing with the provincial administration, the provincial administrator has seen the partnership that we have with the community development and the influence that we had with other service providers. And so he came out very positive, stating that he will support wherever necessary.
Yeah. So part of the reason for starting up this office in Goroka was, it's quite expensive to run an office and pay the rent. In Port Moresby, we do it with the private sector, so we actually get free office space. But we've tried this other model in Goroka, working with the government and actually getting space from the government. In fact, Ellie was telling me one of their plans is actually because there is spare land on that government administration complex, perhaps get some of that land, extend the building ourselves. We could pay for that, but then again, it would still be part of the government complex and rent-free, which would be great. So we've actually got a question that Cynthia's sent in, and yeah, that's also, if you want to write your question, or you're very welcome to, or you can say it. So thanks, Cynthia, for your question. And Cynthia's question is, which districts in Eastern Highlands Province is the program operationalised in, and does Family PNG have safe houses in Goroka?
Okay. So we are stationed in town, but our outreach program, we've just worked with 3 different districts. That's Goroka district, Daulo district, and Lufa district. But that is just our outreach program. We do not stop from seeing survivors. Survivors come from all over the province and even outside of the province as well, as far as other Highlands provinces too. And we do not have a safe house, but we do support safe houses that are being in the community.
Yeah, so maybe just to say a bit, do you want to say a bit more about the safe houses and how we operate? And I guess why we don't have safe houses. So we have one in Port Moresby as part of this Bellisi partnership with the private sector, which has been donated by BSP. So we do operate that safe house, but otherwise we've decided not to, build and operate our own safe houses, but rather to work with partners. So perhaps just say a bit more about how that works.
So these other safe houses in the province, we support basically with, things like beddings, clothes, eating and cooking utensils. These are some things that we support. And also, if we are to look at safety and security, we're also looking at providing some things like lights, basic solar panels, at least to have that space safe for our survivors. So when we have survivors in the safe houses, we do support with food, toiletries, clothes, basic items.
Yeah, so we actually support about 80 people on sort of any day. That'd be the average number of survivors and their dependents in safe houses. Some of them in our own safe house in Port Moresby, but otherwise supporting partners, who often have safe houses but don't have the resources really to run them. So it's a good partnership rather than opening our own. I think, Annie, maybe for people who aren't so familiar, you could just tell a story about a client you've been involved in, a case where you can see. Obviously, it doesn't work out for every survivor, but where feel you've been able to make a difference. Do you want to just share a story with us?
I can share story with us all. So there are different and a lot of survivors that we've helped, but maybe I'll share just one that we can hear. So there's this mother who came running to the office. She mentioned to us that she was assaulted by a spouse and she was forced to leave her house. So she was living with friends for quite some time. And then she had a 4-year-old daughter that she left behind with the perpetrator. So thinking of her safety, the survivor would go from time to time back to the house to see if she can get her daughter back. But several times that she goes back to the house, is assaulted again and again. So finally, she came and reported to the office of a situation. And so she was assisted and put to a safe house, supported through to lay a complaint to the police, report the situation to the child protection officer at the welfare office. And so she finally got her daughter with the assistance of the police and the community development. And then she was assisted in filing for a protection order. So she got a protection order. And the good thing was in one of the conditions that was in the protection order was for her and the partner to go for counseling. So because it was a court document, the perpetrator had no choice but has to go for counseling. So after they went for counseling, they got back together and there was order in place. So the survivor came back and reported that she was happy and at peace with the court order. And I think she has also seen some changes in the perpetrator. She mentioned to us that he has improved and lessened the amount of violence that she used to, go through. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's great to see. There's another question from Marianne, who says, "Hi, Ellie. Great work you and the team are doing. As a caseworker for 8 years working with family, what's the biggest challenge you see in changing behaviour or cultural mindset that contributes to sorcery-related violence?" Yeah, or maybe violence, other types of violence too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marianne.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in Papua New Guinea, violence is something that a lot of people see as a normal thing. So, like as growing up too, I have seen parents assaulting their children, and they see it as a form of discipline. Yeah, so in most communities in PNG, people go through violence, but they normalize it. There would be a neighbor fighting, but these other people who are observing or who are living close by, they would look at it as it's a normal thing and it's not their business to do anything. So I think a lot of communities are normalizing violence in their families, in their community. And so with sorcery-related accusation violence as well, it's so difficult for a lot of survivors to have access to the available services because the service providers, most of them also have that belief as there's this practice. So when a service provider has that belief that there's things like sorcery is true, and it kind of hinders that person to help the survivor. So most times survivors of sorcery accusation related violence are not assisted properly. And maybe one other thing, the survivors also, knowing their own communities, knowing their own families, and knowing also how the legal system tends to respond to them, they would most time resort to mediation or to compensation, and with the aim of getting back to the community where they belong to, but there's peace maintained. So most times the survivors do not go through to the normal court process. They resort that to violence outside of court, maybe through mediation or through paying compensation.
Right. Yeah, I think you said last night, that I think you talked about the work of Family PNG under the three headings to the sort of response, the case management, the awareness, like you talked about, outreach, and then advocacy, because we also advocate with government. But I think you really highlighted that response. And you have to show that it's a serious issue, right? There's going to be consequences. That's Otherwise, right. That cycle will continue.
Yeah.
In terms of the violence.
Yeah.
Perhaps you just talk a bit about Family PNG as an organisation. For those who don't know, it's a PNG NGO registered in PNG, and nearly all the staff are Papua New Guinean. I chair it, but the majority of the board is Papua New Guinean. So, and you've been there almost from the start. So perhaps just talk a bit about how Family PNG has grown and changed as an organisation.
Yeah. So Family PNG is local non-government organization. So he just started opening services, case management services to survivors of family and sexual violence since 2014 in Lae. And then it has expanded to Port Moresby in 2018, and then to Goroka in 2021. So I think around August this year, we have celebrated our 10th year anniversary. We've started only with 7 staff, but after now 10 years, we are almost 70 staff. And all of us are Papua New Guineans, except our CEO, who is from the Philippines.
And what do you think? We've just had 10 years. What do you think the next 10 years, when you look forward, what do you think the next 10 years will hold for Family PNG?
Yeah, in the last 10 years, Family PNG has achieved a lot of things, from saving survivors to expanding to other provinces, and the different engagement at different levels that it has. And also the support that we receive has grown in the last 10 years. So from what I see, I believe that it will continue to grow and expand. but it has really positively influenced lives of people, especially survivors. Not just survivors, but also the staff that work with Family PNG. And in a bigger picture, it has really positively influenced a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, Lawrence just posted about a film that actually Family PNG Australia produced, which is there on the web, and it's a great little 10-minute video about the work of Family PNG. Here at the ANU, we do some research. Maybe you could talk a bit about the client management system and the sort of database that we have, and that provides the basis for a lot of the research and advocacy that we do. Could you just talk about that, the client data?
Yes, we have a really good system where we keep the data of every client that we see. So we call it a case management system. Every one survivor that comes, we have their files. We create their files, and then through all the follow-ups that we make, all these documents are captured, and it's captured in our data system. Yes, so I'd say we have really good data system compared to any others. And so this data helps us to also advocate on the needed services to the government.
Yeah, in fact, we've just put out a report at the ANU on the 10 years of data. There's a lot of data because there are about 100 survivors every month that come to Family PNG, maybe about 40 in Lae, 40 in Port Moresby, and almost 20 in Goroka. So there's a lot of interesting information, and you can see both the areas of improvement, like a lot more restraining orders are issued now, which survivors value, but also the areas of weakness. It still takes quite a long time often to get a restraining order, and a lot of women who want one, still aren't able to get it. Got a couple more questions, which is great. So I think there are 3 actually that we haven't got to yet. So first of all, from Mary, she says, "Thank you, Ellie. I was wondering, are there community-driven mechanisms that are working in Eastern Highlands that Family PNG are working with apart from government? For example, Law and Order Committee in some communities?"
Yeah, like I said, we just started our outreach program. Outreach program started just last year. So we've decided to just work with 3 districts only in the Eastern Highlands province. But hopefully next year onwards, we will reach out to other different districts and into the other Highlands provinces as well. So we're not just working with through 3 people. We're working with different. We're also looking at partnering with CHEDS and other NGOs and FBOs that are working or have some programs of self and gender-based violence in the province as well.
Yeah, Mary, did you want to comment any more on that, on the point you were making? I think we work like as with as many people and groups as possible, government and non-government.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your question. Another question from Melinda says, "Hi, Ellie, great job in the Highlands. My older daughter is a victim of sexual child abuse. It happened 2020, 2022, or 2000 maybe. I found out." Okay, so you've had personal experience, Melinda. I'm very sorry to hear that, but I hope you had a positive response. I know actually, I think it's about 15% of our cases are actually child abuse cases, and they're often very difficult to deal with. I don't know if you want to talk about child abuse in particular.
Yeah, it's sometimes challenging to assist survivors of children because I guess in the province we do not have really specialized child protection officers or skilled and knowledge child protection officers. So sometimes the children are not attended to properly. So it is really a challenge, and it's a challenge that still remains.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things our research highlighted was that although the child abuse cases are about 15%, so like 1 in 8, but they're actually a much bigger part of our caseload because they often end up in safe houses because there is, like Ellie was saying, there's no obvious solution. And then, of course, the adult survivors have their own dependents. So in terms of safe house accommodation, about half the people we support are actually children. So it's definitely a big part of our work. And we also find relocation is something we often do with children. Perhaps you could talk about that a bit. We haven't really covered that.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the key services we provide. So maybe just talk about relocation as a strategy.
Yeah. So we do have survivors that do not feel safe going back to where they received violence. So most times they would opt to maybe relocate. And a lot of these survivors, we've seen that they wanted to go back to their families. So basically their families would be living in other provinces or other districts or somewhere away from their own residence. So we would help to relocate them.
Okay, so there's also a question from Albert. Albert says, "Hi, Ellie, fantastic effort from you and the Family PNG team. Can you highlight some strategies, short-term and long-term, to assist in fighting against FSV-related issues in PNG?" Yeah, I guess that's what we've been discussing are the strategies we've put in place. But I guess if you're looking forward, like what else do you think we should be doing? What would you like to see Family PNG be doing more of?
Yeah, maybe from what I have seen, we have a lot of services for survivors. But if we could also look into some services for perpetrators, then it would be another good approach. So at least, these perpetrators in a way have been also abused in maybe once or twice in their lifetime. So if there are some programs for them, then maybe we could help in some reduction of violence in the community.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That often gets raised, is what are we doing with perpetrators? And of course, it's a very risky job. Someone like Ellie takes on. So it's not easy to know how to interact with perpetrators, but that's certainly, that would be one challenge to think about, I think, for the next 10 years of Family PNG. Okay, then we got a question from Marianne that says, "Hello again. Hi. Are there any other family-style organisations in the Pacific that we look to for lessons learned that are also making big inroads?" Yeah, I can help answer that. I mean, I think this is kind of a crisis centre. That's one way to think about what Family PNG does, as well as the outreach. But that case management works sort of like a crisis centre. And I know we've had the Fiji Women's Crisis Centre for quite a long, like I think 30 years operating in Fiji. And definitely, that's been a big inspiration for us. And they've also helped other countries set up similar organisations. And there are many others in PNG who do similar work, perhaps, Family PNG now, perhaps at a slightly bigger scale. But yeah, I wouldn't say like we're the only organisation. I think we're definitely, Family PNG is part of a bigger movement. And that actually leads into Elizabeth's question. So thanks a lot, Elizabeth. She says, "Thanks, Ellie. It's an impressive organisation. I know there are other..." Okay. Elizabeth just added it's 40 years, not 30 years. So thanks for that correction. And yeah, she said there are other Highlands organisations doing similar things. So she's interested to know more about the relationship with the Eastern Highlands Provincial Administration, with community development and other NGOs, like Family Voice and KUSWA. How are you connected with those?
Yeah. So especially in Eastern Highlands, we have got most of the service providers, as you mentioned, KUSWA and Family Voice. So we've been working together with KUSWA on socially related accusation violence. I think in the most recent month, maybe due to some funds that when KUSWA was unable to continue to do their work, so they've informed that they would need our support in assisting survivors of SAV. So when a lot of survivors go to their office, they've actually referred them to Family PNG. So we've worked with them in that space. They would identify what needs the survivors have that they do not, they are unable to offer. So they would specify that and refer the survivors to our office. So vice versa, if we have survivors that we would need some sort of mediation or they would need to be reintegrated back to their family, then KUSWA is an expert organization that does that. So we refer the survivors to KUSWA for that approach. And Family Voice, we had several survivors that came and requested for counseling. So I'd say our caseworkers do not have that capacity to provide continuous counseling. We do case management, counseling in itself. To really provide counseling, we refer survivors to Family Voice for counseling.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say it is a very small team in Goroka. Ellie's a manager. There are 2 caseworkers. There's an outreach officer and there's a sort of administrative person. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's only 5 people, and you can with like almost 20 clients coming through every month. It's a pretty heavy caseload. Elizabeth also mentioned the what about community development? What's with Ms. Saveri?
Oh yeah.
Talk about more about that relationship, how we work with them.
Yeah. So community development has actually given us that one of their office space where we are currently in, and where we do work with them in terms of cases of children. They have welfare and child protection offices. And in cases of some other civil cases like adultery and maintenance of children, if they are to recoup children, in this kind of cases, we refer them to community development. So they work with them at that level. So this is how we work together with them.
Okay. Yeah, actually, so Melinda's got some more information. So it's actually an ongoing case with your child. Sorry to hear that, Melinda. But yeah, you can definitely approach the Family PNG office in Port Moresby, although it is, we do work in Port Moresby as part of Bellisi, which is a private sector partnership. We're open to all people, all clients. Yeah, so you can find the number on Facebook or on the Family PNG website. So please, there's a phone number there. I'd suggest you go and find that, and definitely give them a call, and I'm sure they'll be, give them a call. I think that's the best advice I can give you. And yeah, good luck with that. Elizabeth, back to you. You asked some more about community development, about the referral pathways, and how do they implement the provincials. Is there a provincial strategy on GBV?
Yeah, in one of our meetings, I think a few months ago, they said they're still working on the provincial GBV strategy. So we're waiting for them. Once they have that rolled out, then we may see some implementation of things like maybe referral, how we can refer survivors to whichever service provider that is needed. So I think basically community development is working on that. It is really coordinating services for survivors.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Lawrence. That's a good idea, putting the phone numbers up in the chat. Thank you. I'll say from the one time I met the community development officer, I think she's obviously very supportive, and it's great that she's given us the office space. I think she also sees Family PNG as like an ally. I think she's been there maybe 20 years, right? I think working with the government.
Yeah.
And I think she feels like it's always the lowest priority for the government. So at last, I think she feels with Family PNG kind of strengthens her hand, gives her, just gets her in front of the administrator, gets her more resources. If there are needs, she can work with us. So yeah, I've got to say, in the 3 provinces, it's by far the best partnership we have at the government level. But yeah, as I think as Claire was saying, there was a bit of suspicion, I think, when Family PNG came in initially, because these other organisations have been there for a long time. But I think, with people like Ellie and over time, it's not like we're not out to displace them at all. We're here to work with them and to help them. And so I think it's a pretty healthy partnership set of partnerships that's emerging. Yeah, so we are running out of time. We're going to keep this to an hour. And any people who haven't had a chance to ask any questions, you're welcome also to, just ask them as well as put it in the chat. Any more questions? Well, just while you think, if you've got any final questions, I had one more, which is that, it's great work you're doing, Ellie, but it must be very stressful, right? So at a personal level, you've been doing it for almost 10 years. Like, how do you keep going, right? How do you cope with the stress?
Yeah, I think I've mentioned a bit of that earlier. It's sometimes very stressful, but also rewarding, like I said. So we have in the staff of Family PNG have different ways they, cope with the stress, and every day is different. Sometimes we have challenging cases that really breaks us down, and it's a lot of stress. But when we have also cases that go through to maybe court, the objectives of the clients are met, it's also satisfying too. Yeah, so we also have a program in the organization, we call it the staff debrief program. That also helps us to participate in different activities apart from assisting or seeing clients. And that also helps us to relax and debrief ourselves. Yeah, re-stress. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, and Lauren's posted some more information. Yeah, there's also the helpline, which we work closely with. So that's another number you can reach out to if you need assistance. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. I hope you found that informative. And as we've already mentioned, there are a number of other resources. If you're interested, watch the video, look at our research reports. And Ellie gave a great speech last night, which we'll be posting shortly soon. If you want to stay in touch, you can sign up either for Family PNG Australia if you're in Australia, or Family PNG if you're in PNG. Just go to the website and you can sign up there. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot to Ellie. Please join me in giving Ellie a round of applause for answering all our questions and giving us such a useful and I got to say, inspiring interaction. Thank you, Ellie. Thanks, everyone. And we'll say good night.